Hello and welcome back everyone to the New Zealand Retirement Podcast. My name is Braden Page, based here in sunny Auckland, and today I'd like to take you through a case study. Now this is a case study that is representative of clients that I've served over the past 5 years, but it is not any one particular client's case. So without further delay, let's meet our wonderful case study couple. Our couple for today is John and Mary Douglas. John is an engineer, at 61 years old. Mary is a teacher. John earns $140,000 a year, Mary $70,000 a year. They're coming up to retirement soon and they know that they need to start getting things in order. John and Mary have a 2-year age difference, so they're currently thinking it would be great if John retires at 65 and Mary can follow at the same time too and retire at 63. They would love to fund any shortfall through that period so they maintain their standard of living. They also don't want to run out of money before they run out of life. So after going through a little tool, My Longevity, they have come out to an age of 90, which they think is entirely reasonable. John and Mary own their own home. They are now mortgage free. They recently sold a rental property, which they paid off some of that mortgage on their own home and paid off the rental property completely. They've got 630 grand just sitting there now. Before that, they were already thinking about moving away from rental property, so they started saving more into investments and high growth investments. They're currently with a bank that is charging a 1.09% annual charge, and they have their KiwiSavers also with their bank. $90,000 for John, just been contributing the minimum for both. And now they're wondering, how can they do better with the assets that they have to have that comfortable retirement, and how can they plan for their withdrawal strategy so that they're withdrawing their money in a way that makes sense. The real crux of any financial plan is what we spend. For John and Mary, they were thinking they'd spend around $80,000 a year, but what they didn't count was the travel that they like to do occasionally that didn't show up in the last couple of months. And the home maintenance, which a lot of people underestimate. The good rule of thumb is about 1% of its value. So that comes to a total expenditure per year of about $107,000. That is the piece that we're going to be using in our financial planning. They also are both incredibly fortunate to have health insurance. And they have, again, through one of the better funds, they specifically have AIA. They have, before they came to see me, they cancelled life, trauma, disability, and income protection. In a future case study, if this is interesting to you all, I can go through a case where they still have that in place and we can talk about what will be included and what won't be included in our retirement planning. What would I suggest moving forward with all of those things? Which ones would we cancel? Which ones would we potentially change? Also, that health insurance, they probably have a excess around $1,000 or $2,000. They'll want that premium to be as low as possible. If something happens health-wise, it's usually one of those really big health issues, like cancer, surgery, something that's not covered by Pharmax. AIA as life sort of policy will cover you very well for those. So my immediate recommendations for this couple would be, let's go through your risk profile. Over the past 10, 15 years, it has reasonably been a risk-off environment with the exception of 2022. A lot of people have been moving into this higher growth space, which is great for long-term growth, but many people cannot handle that kind of long-term growth. When looking at something like 2022, we saw portfolio values drop a lot. So we're going to go through this risk profile with them. I will specifically use one of mine, which is kind of more of a questionnaire type. John will go through this and he'll find out that he's somewhere between moderate and balanced. So we like to take the upper side because we want to take more risk if we can. And Mary is somewhere between balanced and growth. So we need to negotiate this in our financial planning. John's KiwiSaver is still with his bank. I would love to see him change to a low fee passive balanced fund. Again, we're aiming at that upper side of John's risk tolerance. But that will help with long-term growth. That should bring fees down about $135 a year, and anything you're not paying in fees tends to be something additional that's compounding for you. Same with Mary, also decreases that fee $120 a year. This is because the growth fund with their particular KiwiSaver provider at their bank is quite a bit more expensive for the growth fund. That's why that fee is proportionally more. On the private wealth side, we can actually invest it into a low-fee passive fund approach with something on the Invest Now platform, or we can go with a dimensional passive portfolio, which dimensional is basically what the vast majority of fund managers in New Zealand use as their core holding, their main holding. And this is because they are an evidence-based shop based in Australia, but hold assets from all over the world. They're at $1 trillion plus now of assets under management. So they are an absolute behemoth in terms of quality asset management. Dimensional one's going to be slightly more expensive, but we would expect to have slightly greater returns over time due to the increased quality of implementation, which again, I probably need to go into in a whole different video. You'll also see down the bottom here, importantly, an emergency fund. I want to see at least half a year worth. So I'm just going to go back. Half a year worth of essential expenses. So essential here, I've got 43,000. Half of that is 20. Once we add in health insurance rates and home insurance, which I'm breaking out for financial planning purposes, that gets us close to that 30,000, right? So the reason why we're holding that to the side, yes, we're giving away some of that growth. You hold that money in a cash account and bad things will happen less. If you don't have that emergency fund, washing machines will break down, alternators will go on cars. So that's why we keep some cash just sitting there as an emergency fund. And we'll also talk about in future case studies, if it's interesting, using larger emergency funds for nervous clients that are maybe nervous about markets going down. And so they might want to have 1 year or 2 years of cash sitting there rather than just 6 months so that they can draw on that cash when markets have gone down, giving the portfolio time to recover. So when we think about risk, we kind of have three choices. One is where we have the portfolio that both people are comfortable with. So we usually go more for the person that is less risk tolerant and aligned more to theirs. We could have one where each person has their own portfolio and they will be aligned to their individual risk tolerances. So they're both comfortable and they can see their sum of money themselves. Or option three is we can go with a higher growth, but then again, have that cash sitting on the side. So if we have that 1 year, 2 year, 3 year cash buffer sitting on the side there, that just gives the more risk averse part of the couple a sense of safety because they know they have the next 2 to 3 years covered. And again, a portfolio recovering without having drawings taken off of it during that period of time can be a very good thing for portfolio survivability. The truth behind it, though, getting a little more into the weeds, it isn't mathematically optimal because vast majority of the time, the portfolio is going to be going up in value and any short-term decreases in portfolio value are typically followed by large rallies. So for this couple, I'm going to suggest a combined planning approach where we take an ideal allocation of around 60% shares, 40% bonds. This is called a balanced portfolio. So now we move over to our financial planning software and we find that plugging in all their information, you can see all their spending here, all listed out, including the home maintenance for $10,000 a year. Their salaries, the New Zealand super income that we'd see coming through, that's a gross amount, and their home. We can see that they run out of money around 89. This is already not looking too bad. They can live the lifestyle they want. Again, one of their goals is to make sure that they outlast their money and that they're feeling secure. So we're going to do a couple of things inside of a financial planning to increase the probability of success and them not having to cut back on spending during their retirement period. What it might be useful to do, though, for now is let's look at the chance of success currently. So it's currently 32.6%. I'm actually just going to rerun this for your sake. So that chance of success just means, by the way, that you're able to take the money off when we're planning to. So if we're planning to draw money off for travel and living expenses, all those sorts of things, that is what success means in this case. If we decide to react to financial markets, that is, oh, actually, the financial markets have done very poorly this year, maybe we don't go for travel. We don't take money out of the portfolio to travel. Those kinds of things are outside of this success scope, but will actually increase the longevity of the portfolio. So here we have the bottom 10% of runs. Think of this as a probability. You get quite unlucky. The funds will last to 82. A very normal median approach means that, well, sure, the house is there. There isn't actually a lot else. And that's the main thing we're working with here, right? We want to make sure that we can live in the house as long as that we want to, and that the investment funds are doing their job of funding our lifestyle. So currently, we're at somewhere between 82 and maybe 88 for your average sort of retirement timeframe. We would love to see that increased. So what are a couple of things that we can do? Well, first off, Mary doesn't hate her job. She actually quite enjoys spending some time in the classroom, but she doesn't want to be ruled by it. She wants the option to volunteer in places here and there. She's expecting that she could still continue maybe part-time or very part-time. Mary might decide to fill in for some of the teachers instead. Mary might say to me, Brayden, I think I would like to do this part-time income, and I think that should bring in no less than $20,000 a year. And John says, actually, that's a good point, because I'm quite enjoying some parts of being an engineer. I think I don't want to stop work completely at 65. I don't take a complete step back, but I'd love some freedom. I would love to be able to be involved in the engineering association. I think I'd still get paid something for that. I can use my experience in a way that keeps from 65 to 70. So I might say, let's model out using that part-time income. What does that do to our financial plan? Okay, it adds a year and then perhaps another. So we get most of the way to 92 now. Looking good, looking pretty great. But let's go back again to the chance of success. This is, by the way, this line is what we're expecting to happen. It is more or less the median. 43% chance of success. So again, we could end up with the same problem. If we get bad financial markets, we may not be successful. So let's go back again. Let's have a look. So what if now we want to increase the probability, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to say we each retire at 65. Let's just see what happens if we push Mary's retirement out to her own age 65. That means she works 2 years longer. Not ideal, but let's see what happens. The answer is not a lot. Okay, so perhaps if Mary's income was higher, that might be something that's worthwhile doing, but for now, that's not really worthwhile. So we're going to pull this backwards. We're going to take it back to 63 again. Okay, so what other options do we have? Well, travel is great, but actually in retirement, you may not want to be traveling every single year of retirement. And in fact, while they do have somewhat of a modest travel budget as far as travel goes anyway, they might say, actually, what we could do is only go out 10 years in retirement. So from age 65 to 75, that's the time that we want to be focused on traveling. But we're happy to bring that out past 75. I don't really have an interest in traveling. So, okay, great. Let's model that as well. Okay, looking better. So let's review that chance of success again. We're getting much better here. This is to a level now where I would be more or less comfortable to proceed. This is a fine enough financial plan for this couple. But we could also take it a step further. John, Mary, have you ever thought about a retirement village? Do you think there would be any time in your life that you might want to move or downsize or anything like that? Yes, Raiden, we are reasonably happy to move into a retirement home. We actually think it would be a pretty good idea to have Ryman's. That looks pretty good, and I've gone to visit them, and it sounds all good, but it's not really something I want to do early retirement. I would rather do it in the later years, around age 80 plus. So, okay, let's now look at that. So I've already done this in the background, but here we are. We buy a $800,000 retirement village in the future, adjusted for inflation, of course. And what we see now is, because we're downsizing that home, we actually have a lot more capital available to us to proverbially eat the house. And now, what's the chance of success? You can probably already guess by looking at the graph, more or less 100%. So this is what financial planning is actually about. It's about nailing down all of these different opportunities in retirement. Now, there's of course many different aspects and facets to this. This is why I would love to share this with everyone, because it's actually an incredibly important tool moving forward to calculate what some of these things are. Now, John and Mary might also be car people, in which case this changes the picture entirely, because now we need to be updating the car every 5 to 7 years. They might also be big travel people, where you could double or even potentially triple this budget, in which case we'll need to create a very different plan to make that achievable. Now, at the moment, if John and Mary are perfectly happy with this, we have a legacy sitting there of about $4 million in not today's currency. This is not inflation adjusted yet. Today's currency, about $2 million to give on to kids, grandkids, causes, these sorts of things. Or if they have greater longevity, that they live longer than they think they are, then that's all the more capital to look after them. So I hope this has been helpful to see how a financial plan is put together. What you haven't seen in this part, but I will probably do in future ones, is what the financial plan actually looks like. So for clients, depending on sort of who they are and what they respond to, it can either be a report saying, this is exactly what you need to do. These are what my recommendations are and why. These are the exact assumptions and calculations that I've used for your projections and how, and this is how to move forward with everything. This is the action plan. This is everything you need to tick off. That document could be a written report, can be a presentation. I feel like it's kind of better to be a presentation so that I can really present and show. But this is foundationally what it looks like to do financial planning for retirement. The really tricky thing about retirement planning is it's different for every single person that I see come through the door. No two financial plans I've seen have ever been the same. Now, if you feel like this is something that resonates for you as for something that you would like to be done, yes, you could DIY it. You could go look up the little platform that I've got there and work your way through it yourself. But if you want a professional financial planner to go through that process with you, check out my website, pagewealth.co.nz. Thank you for tuning in to today's New Zealand Retirement Podcast. Please do leave a comment and rate. Believe it or not, no one ever does. So if you do, you will be one of the great people who stand out above the rest. Thank you for your time. I'll see you again very soon.